Hey y'all, it is Tasha. We are back. It's Wednesday night. We are back with another review from Married at First Sight, y'all. Whew, the episode just went off and I just don't know what to say anymore about these couples at this point. But let's just jump right into it, y'all. Season 13, episode 15. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe below. I just want to make a little disclaimer. Got a little bit of people was upset about my review last week. Please always remember these are just my opinions. Opinions are not facts. We all have different opinions. Some people kind of glazed over the fact that I still said Michaela was wrong, and I feel like immediately had an issue because maybe I didn't 100% agree with whatever agenda they had made up about Michaela based on her behavior. Just because we don't agree don't mean we can't be friends. It's all right. We will all have different opinions and it's still all love, okay? Just don't be rude, all right? Now let's move on to this week's episode. So now we are only 2 weeks away from decision day, and the couple, basically the episode where they share their roots with each other. So every season it's the episode where they go back to like their childhood homes and actually get to, tell their spouse a little bit about how they grew up and, what happened. So the couples are all traveling back from Houston from the couples retreat, and Johnny and Bao comes home. She says she feels good about the trip in regards to basically having a good time with the other couples, but in regards to their relationship, she's like, we didn't really interact at all, so I don't really feel anything there. She asked Johnny about how he thought the weekend went, and he says it was a lot of fun, and then they kind of just sit there in silence and look at each other, and he's like, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go take a shower and get ready for bed. I'm just like, y'all, this is just so uncomfortable for us. Bao says she really enjoys, these deep conversations that have pretty much gotten them to the point of where they are now. So she isn't so happy about the whole level 1 conversation. She's like, I have level 1 conversations with people, on an airplane. And as she's watering her plants, she's also having about a level 1 conversation with them as well. So this just ain't doing it for her. We then see Zach and Michaela. They have not spoken to each other since the retreat, and now they're meeting with Dr. Pepper separately at Zach's request. Michaela says she has reached out to him multiple times via text and told him that she loved him and wanted to work it out, and no response. And I'm just like, you love him, girl? All right, y'all love each other. Okay, whatever. Zach tells Dr. Pepper that, she's been texting a lot, so he confirms exactly what she said, and he has not responded. He replays the conversation that they had about divorcing and still dating, and Dr. Pepper basically has the same look that we all had of like, what the hell? That don't make no sense. But if y'all say so, okay, we gonna roll with it. Zach says that in that moment, he says he was done, basically. And when asked about learning moments, he says that he has talked to his exes to figure out how he basically handles conflict. And they said that he avoids conflict and doesn't do well with like explosive moments, which that's all he gets with Michaela. So Dr. Pepper asks, him about hearing each other out. Basically, they have a conversation, but there are some rules that they agree on prior to the discussion. If any of the rules are breaking, they stop the discussion. He's like, I just can't. I can't. And I'm like, okay, Zach, you can. So Dr. Pepper then makes the suggestion of, so what if you guys have a conversation with me being the middle person? So you tell me something, I tell her basically what it is that you're trying to say, and then vice versa. And they seem to agree on that. But she says she thinks it's important for them to discuss what happened and basically how it affected each of them. So Michaela comes in and tells Dr. Pepper that, Zach left her, although she asked him not to leave. And we know abandonment is one of her biggest triggers. She says that him leaving in such a big explosive way hurt her. And I'm like, Michaela, you kind of full of shit, but Zach did put on a whole production with going outside, telling the other couples bye, just saying, can I please just leave? Can I please just take your bags in your car and leave if you needed to get away that quickly? So they both be putting on for the cameras. But she's basically talking this whole time and, saying, what happened and how she felt and how it hurt her. And she's very calm in this moment. And I'm just like, What is going on here? Have you had a chance to reevaluate? Are you putting on? Have you taken medication? Not being funny, but seriously, I'm just confused as to what is happening right now. But she said she tried to reach out, and basically her sending the text message was kind of like her Hail Mary to see, what may happen. Dr. Pepper reiterates what was said back to Zach. And his response is that he basically can't say anything right now. He can just listen. And the whole time she's basically talking, Michaela is talking, he's just making faces, doing gestures. So I'm sure she kind of sees it at the corner of her eye and is not helping this whole situation. Dr. Pepper does share that the past few weeks have been pretty traumatic for him based on her high drama. She says that he tries to paint her to be crazy and an inconsistent person, and he has no evidence of her reacting in a bad way to him. And she said this, and I'm like, Michaela, girl, what is going on here, guy? I don't know what is going on. I'm confused about what I'm watching. So Zach says that he's basically reached his limit. He can't have this conversation today, and then he leaves. And again, I'm like, this whole thing is a disaster. He says he does not handle conflict well. She is a walking conflict. She doesn't deal with leaving well, and he always wants to leave. This whole relationship is just trash. But on a side note, what is going on with Michaela's hair? That wavy wig and that braided wig, sis, blend a little bit better. Your hair is gorgeous. I know protective styles and all that, but they wasn't it. But okay, that's me being petty. Anyways, after he leaves, Michaela continues to talk to Dr. Pepper about her reaction, and Dr. Pepper tells her that she's had some ugly scenes and asks her what she would do differently. She says that the panic attack that she had at the end of the retreat, so at the end of the episode last week, she says is what she would want to do differently. So as she's talking, she starts to cry and said that she felt scared, she felt abandoned, and she felt mad, and she hasn't had that feeling since her dad died. I ain't gonna say I called it, but that's what I said in my review last week, is that I'm sure going through that whole ordeal, like even telling him to leave and go and all that, after the fact, she's let it come out of her mouth. She then thought about what happened with her dad and him leaving and her being afraid of not seeing him again, which is why she reacted that way. Again, I didn't excuse her behavior, but I said I understood based on her past trauma with her dad passing. Okay. But she basically said that him getting on the road to, in her opinion, equal death because of that. So Dr. Pepper says, Zach obviously can't deal, and it would be hard for anyone to deal with the mismatch of her emotions. And she really wants Michaela to work on not projecting that loss of her dad on other people, especially relationships, because she doesn't want to be alone. But everything that she is doing is pushing people away for her to ultimately be alone. So we see Bao and Johnny meet up at his childhood home. They just meet on the outside, and he shares some pictures. And I'm like, well, I guess she can see the pictures of your family. She just can't meet your family in person. Okay. Bao asks about the memories of his dad, and he says he doesn't have much, and his dad inadvertently shaped him without even being a big part of his life. He reads the letter that he wrote to his younger self and talks a lot about the things he didn't have as a kid, and told his younger self to forgive his father. He was very sweet and very vulnerable in his letter. And I'm just like, Johnny, if this can be you most of the time, it would be tolerable. And we could see how this whole marriage may have worked out differently. But because this is not the side that we see from you 95% of the time, it's hard for me to dig deep and feel some sympathy and connect with you in this moment. He says that his dad's last-ditch effort was basically flying him and his mom and his siblings out to LA and saying that he found a house for them, and he basically kind of wanted to start over, and his mom said no. He said he was proud of his mom for getting a divorce because said that she deserved better, although divorce is frowned upon in the Asian culture. But it seems like, he basically got that idea of being able to walk away and leave being okay from his parents because they got a divorce and it was okay for things to end with them. So basically it's okay for him to kind of jump from all these relationships and just leave and walk away from Bao because it seemed easy enough for his father and his in their marriage. So he's like, work for them. Great, obviously. So let me just try. Okay. But it seems that he just wants to be married to basically be the opposite of his parents. And it's almost like he wants to prove something to his dad of, I'm able to be successful at something you weren't. And I'm able to be, a husband and a dad and provider. I'm able to be everything that you were not. So in your face. It's kind of like he wants to prove that with anybody else other than Bao. So now we are 10 days until decision day. Gil takes Michaela to where he grew up, and it's a pretty rough neighborhood. He basically says that, cars got broken into every other day. He says he got into a few fights because he really hung with a rough crowd. He shows the apartment where he grew up and where his dad got shot, and says that he has brought no one to this place before. He's talked about his dad passing, of course, but never actually bringing them to this apartment. So he kind of walks us through what happened of, him being on the couch in the living room sleeping. Whoever broke into their apartment, I guess, just walked right past him. And his dad started to, get up and walk out. And then his dad saw someone and he just went back into the room and shut the door and put his back against the door. The person just shot through the door and shot his dad in the neck. And then I guess just left. But he says he ended up, of course, calling 911 for his dad, rolled them in the ambulance, and after about being in the hospital for about 20 minutes, they said that his dad had passed away. And I was just like, gosh, that has to be so traumatic to go through something like that as a child. Like, I can't even imagine. We then see Rachel and Jose go to his childhood home, and he talks about, how his parents sacrificed for him and his siblings and actually bought the home that they're still in right now. He shows her lots and lots and lots of pictures of himself inside the home because it is Joseing. Like, do we expect anything else? He shares that they didn't have a lot growing up and they ate a lot of rice and beans because, it was cheap to buy a lot of rice and buy a lot of beans. And Rachel was like, well, I kind of had the opposite experience of, we ate a lot of rice and beans as well. But I just figured that was, just being a part of our culture. And she was like, I'm concerned about what having a lot means to him because, for me, if you had like a house, like a real house like this, that means you had a lot. And I'm like, Jose does not equal that to having a lot, which is why now he's a freaking penny pitcher and don't want to travel, but want to take road trips around Texas when you live in Texas, Jose. Cut it out. Next, we see Johnny. He meets Bao where she actually grew up, and we just see some land because the house is gone at this point. She doesn't discuss her childhood because she says it's a lot of hurt and shame. And she actually says she doesn't even want to discuss it with Johnny because she doesn't think that he deserves to know more about her. And I'm like, well, there's that. Okay. But she shows him pictures of the house and basically what it looked like when it was there and the trees that she used to play with and everything like that. She says that she would build a hut for her Barbies and then set it on fire because she was lonely and had no friends. And I'm like, okay, little fire starter, Bao. I guess that's what we do if we don't have no friends. Make huts and burn them. Okay, girl. She then reads the letter to her younger self and starts to cry about her parents, specifically her dad living with PTSD, which she says made it hard to live with him because basically that was years ago when probably they didn't know, like he probably wasn't really diagnosed with PTSD. The family didn't really know how to deal with him or approach him about that. So it was hard living in the home with him. As she's talking about it, we see that Johnny gets a little bit choked up and he actually really consoles her as she starts to cry really deeply about what happened with her dad and growing up. So this was really nice to see that he wasn't so cold that he just kind of left her out to dry and not actually console her in this moment. Again, really sweet moment with the two of them together. And I'm like, maybe we should have started off this way with the two of them and then moved forward because I think this would have been a good setting ground because it really caused both of them to look at how they grew up and how it may be shaping how they're participating in their marriage right now. And Johnny actually, says that is he's talking to Bao And she's talking about, is she a reflection of maybe one of her parents? He realized that he may be a reflection of his parents as well. He admits that he was expecting too much, and he really never really gave it a try and gave Bao a fair shot. And I'm like, nice of you to realize that now, but it may be a little too late at this point, Johnny. You just done too much damage. And I'm just like, to me, it's a lost cause, but we'll keep talking because y'all know how the episode ends if you watched it. We are now 9 days until decision day. Michaela brings Gil to volleyball since she was athletic and played volleyball when she was younger. And they didn't really explicitly state it, but I can just assume at this point that she did not, of course, grow up in Houston, and she grew up in Mexico, which is why they would not go back to her childhood home. But they play volleyball, and Michaela is pretty good at it in her little shorts and her high school volleyball jersey that she can still fit. She says that her mom really encouraged her to play sports and be active, although they couldn't afford having a car, so it's hard for her to get to practice in games. She says that really being in sports helped her to be organized and motivated to do better. She said that they really struggled a lot growing up, and she actually shows him pictures of her childhood home, and she says that, that justifies why I want to live in a nice little high rise now, and they both laugh, and it's just the interactions of the two of them the past few episodes, I've been completely loving it. Like, they have grown so much from day one of marriage to where they are now. And basically, the only hope I have for them to ever make it to Couples Cam, although I don't watch Couples Cam, they could make it there because they're probably, stay married after decision day and actually stay married post saying yes on decision day. So next up, we see Dr. Pepper go to see Jose and Rachel, and she immediately sees the cards on the refrigerator. Remember the cards Jose gave Rachel some episodes back after he locked her out of the house, the things he would do better because he locked her out of the house. Okay, so she starts to read them, and she reads the one about him checking on his wife morning, noon, and night. And she's like, that sounds a little bit controlling. Like, yes, he is controlling, Dr. Pepper. We all know that. But they sit down and discuss the relationship and how to build and maintain trust. And basically, she talks about how well they have done. She asks Rachel about Jose triggers, and she says making him talk and communicate when he isn't ready to. And I'm like, again, Jose, grow up. There will be times when you have to talk and communicate when you don't want to. What do you think is going to happen if you guys decide to stay together and actually have children? You can't always wait to have those conversations. So you need to get it together and figure out how to be a grown up and keep your emotions in check and have the conversations that need to be had when they need to be had. So, she says she knows to give Jose space during these times, and when he's ready to talk to her, he'll come talk. Jose talks about really scaling back and working on, how much to do, because you remember in the beginning doing all this feeding her, when to brush her teeth, doing completely too much, knowing when to pull back the reins a little bit. They say Jose is listening more, and they're doing great as they lie and hold hands with each other. Dr. Pepper asks if there are any secrets that they need to share. Jose says they've laid all the cards out, while Rachel looks pretty concerned and troubled on the other side of the couch. She tells us kind of in a confessional that we don't see that she needs to tell him something about the night he locked her out, and they kind of just leave us hanging until the end of the episode. Next up, we have Michaela and Zach again meeting with Dr. Pepper. And I'm like, I thought we were done with them at the last scene that we had. But here we are yet again with these two continuing to go back and forth with each other. But Dr. Pepper basically is meeting with them because Zach said he wanted a closure meeting. Dr. Pepper says that we have 2 rules: to be civil and no one interrupts. Zach says that his goal of the meeting is to talk about how they get to where they are and where they can better themselves going forward. And then I kind of expected him to lead the conversation, but he kind of just leaves it open for Michaela to get started. And I'm like, you called this meeting, from my understanding, you need to talk, sir. I'm going to need you to let it on out. But she says, she's given it her all, and she's reached out to him, and he was not responding, which we heard from the last time. He says that he's put in as much effort as she has, and he doesn't want her to think that he doesn't want her. But you kind of don't. You kind of want her for sex, but you don't really want her for nothing else, basically. Dr. Pepper asks if they have given each other affirmations, and they both can say yes to that. Zach says that their relationship was mostly positive, but it was the blow-ups that ruined it. And I'm like, but where were the positives, though? Besides you surprising her, after you got released from having COVID, the date that she arranged for y'all at the studio or whatever, y'all having sex. What were the other positive times exactly? Y'all drop them down in the comments if y'all remember, because I don't remember, child. So Dr. Pepper tells Zach that, essentially he knew of some things that could make some situations better, but he didn't do it. And he shakes his head and agrees. He says, divorced or not, it wouldn't dictate their relationship in the future. And I'm like, huh? And then he says he would say yes on decision day if it would make her comfortable talking to him again. And again, I'm like, huh? How is any of this making sense to them at this point, or even to Zach as he says these words? How is this making sense? Like, this child already has a hard time, like, understanding what's being said and things that are going on. And Zach, you don't help making it. This is confusing for me. And I feel like I understand things pretty well. And I am sitting here hella confused, figuring out what y'all are saying. So Dr. Pepper asked Michaela if he said yes on decision day, would she be willing to work on it? Michaela says getting a yes on decision day would have to come from him and not as a result of getting her to talk to him. So basically at this point in the conversation, the roles have been reversed and she's kind of closed off and done with it. And now Zach is like, ooh, I want to talk. Let's talk. So Dr. Pepper wants them to each put a hand out. And she wants them to, in each putting their hand out, hold the other's hand. And she wants them to agree to have at least one conversation before decision day. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Let's leave it where it is right now. If that is the end of this whole relationship, let it be the end, Dr. Pepper. We don't need no more conversations between Zach and Michaela. But anyway, they do it. And then as they're doing it, she wants Michaela to look at Zach. And Zach's like, she's not going to look, because if she looks, then she's going to start laughing. And he just starts laughing and smiling as if things are cool between the two of them. And I don't get it, y'all. But he basically keeps trying to talk to her. And he's like, so Dr. Pepper wants us to talk. You want to go ahead and talk right now? You want to go ahead and talk right now? And he attempts to talk to her as they are leaving. They get in the elevator together, and y'all, it is like smiling, joke. Like, I am in the twilight zone right now, and y'all, I am dead serious. At this point, I don't care what happens between the two of them. If she cusses him out again, oh well. If he leaves her again, oh well. They deserve it, and at this point, they are asking for the toxicity that they both supply to one another, and I no longer care what happens. Okay? They made this decision, so here we are, and I don't care. Dr. Pepper then goes to see Michaela and Gil, and the two of them are even dressed alike. She got on her little gray dress, and he got on his little gray shirt. I'm like, y'all are just so cute. At this point, I feel like the show is trying to create whatever conflict they can with Gil and Michaela just to include them on everybody else's drama, because I really don't feel like they have really big things going on, and they've kind of keep addressing the same things over and over again. Dr. Pepper asks him about her being a negative Nancy, and he says, he wants her to just stay positive, and he tries really hard for her not to get like that, and he doesn't really want to kind of fall in that dark side when she gets that way. And as they are talking, have y'all noticed how Michaela is just like all over this man? Like, I'm starting to wonder if they smashing, because she is just all over him, kissing him. Like, I think she actually loves him. I'm like, y'all got to be getting it in at this point, because this just don't come from the little kissing that y'all doing at this point. I think y'all are smashing. What y'all think? Dr. Pepper asked them about saving for a house and kids, because that's something that they brought up when they met one-on-one. They said they haven't discussed a specific number, but really talked about, them just being comfortable to have kids and really wanting to put down 20% on a house. Gil talks about her shopping yet again and her kind of cutting that out, because where maybe we could have, say we can save a certain amount of money in 3 years, but if you cut down your shopping, we can save it in 1.5 years. Gil, cut it out. This girl is saving. We've already seen she makes more money than you. If you want to save more, go get a second job and leave this child alone. Because at this point, y'all making this a big deal. We keep talking about it, but there's no resolve around it. So I'm tired of hearing y'all talking about it. Okay. We are now 7 days from decision day, and we see Ryan, he is taking Brent to his family property. And at this point, when they come in well more than halfway into the episode, I completely forgot that they were even a couple and we have not seen them yet. And I honestly didn't really miss them either. But we see he has her on some type of four-wheeler golf cart, go-kart. I don't know what it is. But she says, you know, when he's in his element, he is more enjoyable. They go fishing and says that this is one activity he used to do with his dad. Basically, the relationship between his parents weren't great. And Brent kind of experienced the exact opposite with her parents, you know, being really lovey-dovey and in a great relationship. He says he didn't know what to expect going into marriage because he didn't see it growing up. Of course, Brent is like, my view of marriage kind of doesn't change because I've seen what it can be really, you know, when it can be done really well, how good that looks and how that feels. And that's still what she honestly wants. They sit outside and read their letters to their younger self. And basically what stood out to me from her letter is she tells her younger self that not everybody is deserving of your heart and don't let boys make you feel sad because the right one will make you smile. And I'm like, bloop, in my Nene Leakes voice, bloop. Ryan in his letter talks about his family, high school, college, and again, his friend passing in 2019. He actually gets emotional about this and starts to cry. And this is really the first real emotion we've seen from Ryan throughout this whole thing. Brent says that makes her feel closer to him for whatever reason. And Ryan says that things have felt better the past week that they have in a long time. And I'm like, what exactly happened in the past week that made things feel so great again? I don't even care. Dr. Pepper then goes to see Bao and Johnny and asks what happened since their last meeting with the experts individually. She asks, you know, what they are trying to accomplish now, and they just sit there. Neither one of them have an answer. She asks if they have learned anything, if they have learned everything, and there's anything, you know, left to learn about each other. Johnny jumps in and says, oh, I can answer that. And he says he doesn't think that he has learned everything, but he says he's learned everything he wants to learn. And I'm like, here we go. It's showtime. He says that he's talked to one of Bao's friends and they actually ended up talking about the marriage. And it's this friend, Sarah, which I'm like, this is a hating friend, Bao. I mean, even if this stuff is true, your friend should not be telling all your business like this if she is your friend. So I hope y'all are no longer friends. But he says that talking to Sarah, he says that as he's telling her how she is in the relationship, she says that this makes perfect sense because this is how Bao is in relationships. Sarah shares that she would never date Bao and she would never have one of her friends date Bao. She says that basically Bao breaks people down and forces them to lean on her and then tries to rebuild them in the image that she wants them. I said, child, is she trying to say like Bao is some person that would like have somebody locked in the basement and basically have them locked there until she has brainwashed them that they actually love her? Like when he said that, I was like, my God, that's a lot to put on somebody to say you break them down, force them to rely on you, and then build them back up in the image that you want them to be in. Phew, I was like, that's a lot. And at this point, I don't know who to believe. I do feel like Bao shows us a somewhat representative of herself, but I can't really pinpoint what she's being untrue about or what she's just not opening up about completely to show us her true self. I don't know, because I don't want to believe that Johnny or even the friend is 100% lying. But also we haven't seen this side of her, which she may just be suppressing so that she comes off as looking like the good guy on TV. Not that she really has to try, because Johnny does quite a good job at making himself look horrible all by himself. So I'm just like, but Johnny basically says after this conversation with the friend, it just made him not want to try anymore. Bao starts to cry and says she basically just feels beat up on both sides because now her friend has thrown her under the bus at this point. She says that she has had issues in previous relationship, but this one has been different and her friend hasn't seen her in this relationship. But she feels like she actually has tried with Johnny. Dr. Pepper wants them to talk about what was discussed with Sarah, and again, what caused Johnny to make this be his source of truth. And again, I'm just like, no more conversations. Like Zach and Michaela, just go your separate ways and leave. Rachel and Jose, we see them in the bed, and she says that the previous night they were up till like 4 o'clock in the morning, child, and they brought up the touchy subject, and since then things have been weird. She says that the night that he locked her out, she reached out to an ex and he picked her up. And we all know Jose don't like that. Okay. Once a cheater, always a cheater. He got trust issues. He does not like that. But I'm like, Jose, you locked her out. You didn't open the door. You obviously didn't answer the phone when she tried to call you. Rachel, you probably could have called somebody else other than an ex. But Jose, you kind of deserved it. Let's be honest here. But, you know, he talks about, of course, how big trust is. And I'm like, well, she trusts you not to lock her out of the house. So trust does not only fly when it talks about being faithful and not cheating. People also trust you with their heart and trust you to have their well-being in your, you know, foremost of your brain. And when you locked her out, that wasn't the case. Okay. But she says she told him the truth because, you know, they're married and she doesn't want him to ever feel like she is being unfaithful. And I just can't get over the fact that Jose is just like sitting here, letting her say all this and basically letting her take the blame as if he did not lock her out the house. I'm in the Twilight Zone in this whole episode, y'all. We then go back to Johnny and Bao. They are eating awkwardly together and they talk about their conversation that they just had with Dr. Pepper. Johnny says that he hated bringing her friend Sarah into it. And I'm like, Johnny, lies. That was just more ammunition for you to throw at Bao and for you to just add on to the fact that you're going to say no on decision day. Bao says she doesn't share, you know, what is going on with Sarah because she doesn't get good advice from Sarah. And if she honestly was to tell Sarah everything that was going on, she would tell her just to move on. So she doesn't think it was a good idea for them to talk and she feels betrayed. Bao looks completely disgusted in this moment. And again, I can't figure out if she looks disgusted because she, you know, feels like her friend has turned on her, or if she's disgusted because she's like, how dare my friend tell my secrets and now this man knows how I really am. Like, I just can't decipher what is going on. So Johnny said the friend asks if, you know, can you go to sleep and wake up to this every single day? And Johnny says no. So he says he would rather just walk away because the things he could say could be damaging and he does not want to do any more damage than he has already done. And I'm like, finally, I agree. Please go ahead and walk away because you have done enough damage to this child. Whether she's done all these things that this friend is saying or not, Johnny has been very mean to Bao, and I'm sure it has damaged her internally, and she will need to do that repairing of herself. She says that she is still open to talking as he is like getting ready and wanting to leave the apartment. She says that, you know, I'll be here whenever you're ready to talk. And then Bao starts to be a little bit passive aggressive. I ain't 100% mad at it, but I was a little annoyed by it. She's like, I guess I'll eat this food. And I guess this champagne is for me. And I guess, you know, I'll go put yoga pants back on. And I'm like, Bao, to some extent, you enjoy this torture because when this man said he was done and he was leaving, you really shouldn't have had nothing else to say at that point. Whether it be you being open or you being even sarcastic in that moment, just let it die down, let him leave, and then you can yell and cuss and fuss to yourself once he's out of the apartment. Lastly, the episode wraps up with Brent and Ryan. They are actually at Brent's apartment to look through pictures, but before she even cracks open the photo album, child, she drops the bomb that she's been told that he is on a dating app and he has matched with someone that she knows. He said he did download it today, but it isn't active. And she was like, well, you matched with somebody. And he says, you know, I can show you I haven't talked to anybody. And I'm like, now, Ryan, we know that you actually initiating conversation and then you clicking that y'all have matched are two different things. So you are making a play on words here at this point. But she was like, dog, you couldn't even just wait a week. I was like, right, Ryan, you couldn't just wait a week. But she says basically what she's seeing now does not line up to what he says about respect, because he's tarped on, being respected and being respectful and all this. And he continues to try to vindicate himself about this whole app thing. But, she's like, it really doesn't make a difference because you didn't download this for no reason. You downloaded it because you want to find somebody, point blank in the period, Ryan. He basically says he has nothing to say. He gets up, grabs the dog, and he walks out the door. As he's walking down the stairs, he tries to show the producers on the app that, I have nothing to hide. Y'all can see I haven't had any conversations. And they're like, oh, well, you need to tell her. And then she gets a text message come through, and she's like, oh, here he goes with a text. And I'm going to try to make the text my thumbnail so you guys will be able to see what it says. But essentially, the text says that, he hadn't communicated with the app, but basically he had the app primed and ready until after the decision day. So he had basically made up his mind he was going to say no on decision days. He had gone ahead and built his dating profile on the website so that when decision day comes and he says no, right after he walk out the door, he can then click activate profile, and he didn't have to waste time actually setting everything up. It would already be set up for him. That's essentially what the text said. And I'm like, Ryan, we could have done without you sending that text message to her. Oh, gosh. Next week, we see it's more of a shit show. More couples coming together and having conversations. And at this point, I'm like, I feel like this episode gave us closure on at least 3 of the couples. So why are we yet again mingling with everybody, still having conversations, and still trying to figure things out? For Michaela, Zach, Brent, Ryan, and Johnny and Bao, things are already figured out. What more do we need to discuss besides this just being for pure entertainment at this point, at the expense of I ain't even gonna say at the expense, because if they keep coming back to this nonsense, especially after this episode where it looks like we got a lot of closure between these couples that have kind of just been up and down and in and out, all of y'all love it and y'all love the drama, and this is what y'all want at this point. That's all I can deduce from everything that we've seen thus far. But child, let me know how y'all felt about this episode. As usual, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and we will chat it up. Until then, we will be back here, same time, same place next week. Peace.